I'll repeat once again, we don't need your love. We need your fear, animal terror. And it will come to that. It absolutely will.
In other words, if you're scared, we are winning. This week, Moscow's in full panic mode or possible US Tomahawks. Apparently, panic is a new strategy. Welcome to Spin Snipers. I'm Sofia, and today we'll see what they're saying in Russia and why it's, well, not exactly true. The Kyiv regime, hostile Europe, apparently everyone is standing in Moscow's way from sitting down at the negotiation table and ending the war. The war they actually started themselves. After Trump got in, the US started looking a bit more friendly, or at least that's what they say in Russia until Trump does not deliver the promised tariffs or sanctions against Moscow. And suddenly, Europe is the enemy. Yeah, apparently all Russophobia lives there, for anyone who wasn't aware. And yes, while Europe still hosts pro-Kremlin artists and cultural centers, aka propaganda hubs, in Moscow the tears are all for Europe, because apparently that's where all the hatred live.
The Kyiv regime is one thing, but European frenzied / over-the-top policy is another. Can the American side somehow influence it?
Americans can, of course, influence it, and they do, but there's such a degree of united hatred among Europeans toward Russia, I'd even call it cohesive hatred, that it's hard to pierce that hatred, even using an American drill. I couldn't previously imagine that Europe would speak with one voice toward Russia, and such a belligerent, extremely negative one at that. That single voice closes off for them any possibility of finding nuances in relations with our country.
Russians are an interesting bunch, though calling them that might be generous, and honestly, that deserves a whole separate episode on propaganda. They used to blaming everyone else for the things they are guilty of themselves. And the hatred for Europe? Oh, it's real. They hate pretty much everything here in the free world. First off, the idea of the free world is kind of alien to them. Equality, rule of law, human rights, the ability to choose – all of that feels very far away. Meanwhile, their total unprovoked war against Ukraine only fuels that hate. And since Europe is still somehow holding itself together, Russia tries to scare it into submission.
It was said proudly, we will stage a blackout in Belgorod and Kursk regions. Well, we understand what you'll try to do. That's exactly why Ukraine must be destroyed, and will be destroyed. And Europe can imagine whatever it likes. And some other American, European, or whatever idiot repeating Kellogg's narratives will say, we are not going to listen to Putin. We ourselves will. You don't have to listen to him. You simply can't understand. We don't care whether you can hear. We don't care about your feelings at all. We know you are enemies. And you mustn't have any illusions. You will be destroyed. This is plain and clear. And you don't need to listen to us, nor love us, nor giggle. I'll repeat once again, we don't need your love. We need your fear, animal terror. And it will come to that. It absolutely will.
So, did one of Putin's guys get it wrong? Is it really Europe that hates Russia, or the other way around? The moment anyone in Europe even hints that Putin only understands force, Moscow is ready to tear that person apart on national TV. Take, for example, MEP Marie-Ange Strack-Zimmermann, head of the European Parliament's Security and Defense Committee. In Russia, they could not forgive her stance or even her nationality. Yes, Germans are still linked to all stereotypes there, and apparently that's enough to make them a target on a state TV.
Here's what that absolute creature thinks. Marie-Ange Strack-Zimmermann, a Nazi swine.
Putin listens to us closely. Putin understands only the language of force. Everything else, however lovely it might be to send doves of peace into the sky, is nonsense. The only thing he understands is force, and above all, unity. Let's go down that path. Long live Europe.
Long live Europe. Is that what she wanted to shout? And shall we show her Macron's wife? That's how we'll answer that German broad.
What I love most is when Russians blame literally everyone but themselves for the lack of peace talks. First off, for anyone who forgot, it's Russia that started the war against Ukraine. Yep, imperial ambitions and the need to keep their so-called geopolitical weight in the region. Not some noble mission to protect Russian speakers, denazify, or whatever other nonsense they threw at us to justify their bloodbath. And now, having partially occupied 4 regions plus Crimea, and even adding them to their constitution, Putin wants to sit down and negotiate. On his terms, of course. Meanwhile, anyone who refuses to recognize stolen territory and play alone, totally to blame. But don't worry, the Kremlin really wants peace. You can tell from all the daily shelling of Ukraine. Yeah, that's how you show you want to chat.
Right now, it's truly a very dramatic moment as tensions are being fueled from all sides. The Russian side keeps saying that we are ready for a peaceful settlement, and we also hear that Trump constantly speaks about the need to sit down at the negotiating table. From this, we conclude that he still maintains the political will, but the Europeans and the Kyiv regime are showing a complete unwillingness to do anything in this direction.
But soon, the Americans might be next in line. Panic in Moscow. What if Ukraine actually gets those promised Tomahawks? The tactic? Same as always. Scare the Western public and try to lower support for the decision. How? By loudly talking about nuclear strikes and so-called red lines. And yes, red lines in Russia are, well, a phenomenon. They move faster than anything else. Drones over Moscow, strikes on Russian refineries deep inside the country. Apparently, not enough reason to push the big red button. Even that SBU operation that took over 40 of Russia's strategic bombers? Nope, still not a reason. So relax, it's just another scary story they are telling. Nothing to see here.
Can we, on that basis, consider that the Americans are entering into a direct military conflict? It doesn't matter. 1 Tomahawk, 2, 10. The question of how many at once isn't the point. What matters is the fact itself.
So far, our president is acting very cautiously. Yes, strengthening the air defense system, yes. But I think that will clearly be insufficient, as the president has said. This would fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. Even if we manage to intercept them, the very attempt to strike deep into our rear areas, our infrastructure, including military infrastructure such as air bases, and, excuse me, even oil refineries are important. Strategic aviation bases, according to our doctrine, already constitute grounds for a retaliatory nuclear strike.
But what really keeps the Kremlin up at night is the dirty bomb. They're terrified the US might do to them exactly what Russia basically did to its neighbors by stationing nuclear weapons in Belarus. Yeah, it was Russia that decided Belarus is now a nuclear state. Just like that. And now they're freaking out at the idea that Kyiv might get nuclear tomahawks. But wait, they say everything under control. Sure they do. Negotiations with the US, multiple levels, everything's fine, right? Another bedtime story, either to justify bombing civilians in Ukraine or to make the West sin. Wow, maybe Russia has a point, no nukes for Ukraine. Spoiler, nobody actually promised Kyiv nuclear weapons. Like, at all.
Remember the reports from our intelligence services a year and a half, 2 years ago that Ukrainians might build a so-called dirty bomb. Now imagine a long-range missile launching and flying, and we know it could be in a nuclear configuration. What is the Russian Federation supposed to think? How? Military experts across the ocean ought to understand this, right?
The loudest voice, as always, is Dmitry Medvedev, Russia's ex-president turned full-time keyboard warrior. He has zero real influence in Moscow these days, but boy, does he love his social media. Let's just call him the Kremlin's blogger. Sure, he's only repeating the usual propaganda talking points, but somehow people in Washington still pay attention when he threatens the world. Remember when, after one of his literal nuclear rants, Trump sent 2 American nuclear subs to the relevant region? Yeah, that happened. But did it stop Medvedev? Of course not. He's still out there, doing what he does best, threatening everyone and pretending it's strategy.
Trump said that if the Russian president doesn't resolve the Ukrainian conflict, it will end badly for him. In short, he's threatening for the 101st time. If the business peacemaker was talking about Tomahawks, then the statement is wrong. The delivery of these missiles could end badly for everyone, and above all, for Trump himself. It's been said countless times, in terms even a Stars and Stripes uncle could understand, that it's impossible to distinguish nuclear Tomahawks from conventional ones in flight. Their launch wouldn't be carried out by Kyiv, but by the United States itself, meaning Trump. How should Russia respond? Exactly.
Oh, and here is my favorite one. We need US troops to launch Tomahawks. Wait, really? Since when did Ukrainians forget how to press a button? Let's be honest. Ukraine already uses long-range missiles like Storm Shadow and Scalp with help from partners. Sure, France and the UK train and support, but Ukrainians do the actual work. So this whole American can't do it story, just another political show. It's not about what's possible, it's about excuses. In short, Moscow is lying. Again.
Can Tomahawks do us damage? They can. We will shoot them down. We will improve our air defense system. Will this damage the relations that had shown some light at the end of the tunnel? Of course it will. How could it not? Accepting Tomahawks without the direct involvement of American military personnel is impossible. That would mean a completely new, qualitatively different stage of escalation, including between Russia and the United States.
So there you have it, nuclear apocalypse, red lines and Tomahawk scares. In reality, mostly keyboard shooting, political theater and Moscow trying to spin itself as a victim. That's it for today. I'm Sofia and this was the Spin Snipers. Stay curious, stay skeptical and don't fall for the spin.